Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm your co-host, Carissa.
Perfect. And everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in to the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only Mr. Ralph Bond. He is a longtime Computer America correspondent. And yeah, science and tech trends. If you are at all interested in, science and tech and everything that has to do with, kind of the latest in technology, because so much about what we do here on a daily basis, and, Carissa can attest to this, a lot of it is just like, Verizon has a new plan out and it's going to be great. And, just kind of the everyday tech stuff, which is important, but at the same time, it's, there's a lot of very interesting and great stories that get buried. And I think Ralph, almost like a truffle sniffing hog, is able to find the truffles that are the wonderful tech stories that just don't make as many front pages as they should. So this is our month dedicated to everything strange, unique, and hey, it's also a chance to hang out with Ralph, who's also a very fun guy. So everyone, let's see, computeramerica.com. It will have the show notes after the show, everything that we talk about. Ralph does his best to pick out the highlights, and hey, the show notes are a place to go if you want to find out more. Also, while you're there, past shows, future shows, show notes, podcasts, articles, reviews, social media links, all that and more. Check it out. So Carissa, if there's nothing else, how you doing? Hopefully everything's going well.
Yeah, everything's fine here. Just, we had a snow on, what was it, Tuesday?
And sorry to cut you off there, but I just got to say that, hey, you got to talk about the weather, but I think that Denver hit like 101 degree heat wave, and then 2 days later, which would be like today or yesterday, they had like a blizzard warning.
Yep, correct. So it was like it was Monday, or Saturday and Sunday were the hottest days that we've had in a while. It was like 93, 94, 95. And then, Monday rolls around. We went out, did the downtown area and hung out and stuff. And you could kind of feel it getting colder. But yeah, in the middle of the night on Monday, it just started freaking snowing. And then it was like probably 3 or 4 inches of snow, even all around Boulder. It got down as far as like Denver and stuff after being like 90 degrees. So it dropped, 60 degrees overnight. It was crazy.
Many houseplants died, unfortunately, I'm sure. That's,
caused a lot of tree damage around town, too.
I bet. That's just insane. But also talking about insane weather, we'll bring Ralph Bond on now, just talk about that as well, because I'm sure that a lot of you out there, if you have been keeping up to date on the news, there are horrific wildfires, forest fires, and things like that going on in California, Oregon, parts of Washington, things like that. Not the most cheeriest way to bring Ralph on, and like I said, he is a fun guy and we love having him on, but yeah, let's just go ahead, bring him on real quick. And once again, he is our science and tech trends correspondent, worked with Intel. That's how we first met him, and then of course he had a long stint over at Autodesk, and hey, now he's semi-retired and doing multiple radio appearances, as well as joining us here on Computer America. Ralph, welcome back on to Computer America. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Some of my family members aren't. For listeners who may not know, I live in the Portland, Oregon area, and my wife's cousin Tia lost her home in a little tiny town called Talent, Oregon, which is south of Medford, Oregon, where some of these horrible fires are going on. So it's been kind of a family tragedy for us on that note. But at least our, crew that's up here in the Portland metro area, my son, his wife, their kids, my daughter, her husband, and their baby, everybody's okay so far. And we're fine out here in Hillsboro. And so, keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully this will all end soon. And life can get back to some kind of normal. Well, COVID normal, whatever that is.
Yeah, I guess craziness all around. Blizzards with Carissa, forest fires with Ralph, and hey, here it was like 72. Not to brag, but it was pretty good. But I will say though that Ralph, welcome back on, and why don't we go ahead and start with obviously your mission here and what you try to do when you like I said, there's a lot of tech stories that are. I don't say boring, but just kind of mundane. You do a good job of avoiding a lot of those. What do you try to do when you look for stories?
Well, what I do is I troll a lot of the news services and I look for headlines that are obviously exciting and interesting. And as you pointed out correctly, Ben, a lot of what we do with this segment once a month is look at stories that just don't get coverage in the general mainstream press as a general rule, but they're really fascinating and interesting little nuggets. At least they are to me. And anyway, I know we have to say something about today being 9/11, 19 years anniversary. And I was very personal for me as well, because I was working for Intel at the time and I was working in New York City. I spent about half of my time during those period of time working at the Whitney Museum of Art on a very special technology installation for the museum that Intel was sponsoring. So I was there a lot. And lo and behold, here comes 9/11. And then about, less than 2 weeks, about 2 weeks later, I think there was going to be a big Windows launch. I don't remember which rev of Windows it was. But at any rate, we were asked, our team was put together and they said, folks, you do not have to go back to New York City. If you don't want to, or if you're afraid, go talk to your family. I'll never forget this. I'll make this as quick as possible. Came home that night, sat down with the family, my daughter, who was a young teenager at the time. And I said, okay, family, they insist that we get your permission for me to go. And my daughter said, you have to go. You have to go show support for New York City. And I thought, wow, out of the mouths of babes, right? Yeah. So and when I was there, it was still smoldering and the wreckage. And it smelled like, have you ever taken a soda pop can and thrown it into a campfire when you're a kid just to be stupid? And the weird smell, that's exactly what it smelled like at the site. I'll never forget it. It was horrifying.
Definitely stuck with you, and I actually recall last year when this happened, and I thought it was you, but no, we actually had Sandy Berger on last year during 9/11, and kind of I recounted my experience with 9/11, just being in fifth grade, and all the confusion, things like that. Even being as far down in Florida, nowhere near anything that was happening in the country. Just the abject sense of kind of unknown and worry, and of course seeing all those people deal with that. So I will hey, if anyone wants to go check that out, that was last year. This year we have Carissa here with us, of course, and I'll just go ahead and ask Carissa, if you wouldn't mind sharing what happened to you on 9/11, because obviously everyone has their own story about what happened that day and kind of their experience and really what stuck out to you. So just real quick, Carissa, if you don't mind, I know I'm dumping this on you, so.
That's okay. I don't remember how old I was. I was probably also in fifth grade because we were about the same age. But I remember sleeping in my room because I was homeschooled, so I wasn't in public school anyway. So I was sleeping, and my mom comes in and she shakes me and she was like, "Come in here, you got to watch this." So I, get out of bed and I stumble over to her room and I sit on the bed, and it's the first plane on TV. It's hitting the building. So you see the first one come down, and what was it, 3 minutes later, something like that? I'm sitting there like, holy crap, what's happening? And the second one hits, and I was like, oh no. And I just remember just feeling this sense of dread, what is happening, and then you see, all the people coming out the windows and all that stuff. So it was kind of traumatic. I was
It
a little
really
scarred by
was.
watching that, but it was important, you know?
Yeah, it really was traumatic. And of course, one, you could say what kind of horrible accident happened, but then the second one came and became very clear, not an accident whatsoever. So I will say with that, but, and of course, like you said, Ralph, 19 years later, just last year, Jon Stewart is a lot of fun to watch, and he's been doing a lot of good work with, this, the first responders and 9/11, things like that. And
Right.
I'm sure that, and who's been paying attention to his battle because he's from New York and New Jersey. And, him with, a bunch of other guest speakers and first responders were able to secure, I think, funding through 2072 for first responders and their families. So
Great.
they're,
Great.
18 years later, they got the funding that they need and they're going to be taken care of. And,
Wonderful.
9/11, it's going to be one of those days for a long time. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so with that being said, hey, let's turn this just real sharp, go from, kind of sad memorial to let's have some fun, because obviously
Yes.
that is what we try to do here on the show on a daily basis. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more of Ralph Bond, talking about other things, then, just kind of sad things, every month he picks up the show after we upload it onto YouTube. We of course have a playlist up on YouTube, but he also has a website that's dedicated to his radio appearances as well as our appearances here. Check out his website. But Ralph, without further ado, let's start with story number 1, if you don't mind.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is kind of fun. A U.S. Air Force F-16 pilot just battled artificial intelligence in 5 simulated dogfights, and AI emerged victorious every time. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is from Business Insider, a story by Ryan Pickrell. And again, if you have the show notes up on your screen at home or whatever, you can get the link and the picture and all this kind of good stuff. Now, I know you folks, Carissa and Ben, you guys are totally on board with what AI is, but just for some people in the audience who might not get it, very simplified definition. Artificial intelligence describes a system that mimics human cognitive functions, such as learning and problem solving. That's the core essence of artificial intelligence. But here's the news. Late last week, actually several weeks ago now, an artificial intelligence program went head-to-head against a seasoned Air Force F-16 pilot in a computer-simulated dogfight. Now, the AI program, developed by California-based Huron Systems, achieved flawless victory with 5 straight wins. In fact, the human pilot never scored a single hit. An expert from DARPA said that the AI algorithm demonstrated, quote, superhuman aiming ability during the dogfights. And the dogfight test was part of DARPA's Alpha Dogfight competition, which is designed to help develop the ability to team manned aircraft with AI-based unmanned aircraft. So stop and consider that for a moment. The goal here is to have this kind of tag team or tandem team of manned aircraft and AI unmanned aircraft in future combat situations working together. That's kind of interesting. Now, there's a little bit of a reality check, truth in lending statement here. The DARPA team conceded that the simulated environment of the test dogfight gave the AI virtual combatant an edge over its human foe. But regardless, the achievement is significant for an AI system for which development began less than a year ago. Think about that. Huron's AI program learned fast, gaining roughly 12 years of simulated combat experience over the course of 4 billion simulations. Holy smokes. It's just, wow. It's a really interesting AI story.
Yeah, it's and of course I'm trying to show here on the video portion, anyone checking that out, it's all of the different scenarios where the AI is versus the person, and you can see the 2 planes there and how it's kind of simulated. I mean, we have heard about the military really trying to utilize AI in their planes. Carissa, when we did the story way back when, I think if I recall, her first reaction, Ralph, was she was concerned about, obviously taking the human element out of war and military and things like that. Does that concern you at all when you hear about this kind of stuff? Because obviously this is the future. It's just, where does it end?
Where it doesn't end, and it's a really weird thing. It's very science fiction in its potential. Someday having robots fighting robots. Who's got the better robots? Who's got the better unmanned AI-based aircraft in war? And then you get into all kinds of concerns about the AI program-based robots and so forth wouldn't have the same kind of, well, I don't know, empathy or morals or whatever you want to say, that a human being brings to the game of war, which is always a sad thing anyway. But I don't know. I'm with you. It's fascinating and troubling at the same time. If it saves human lives from combat, that's good. But on the other hand, what door are we opening here? But it's an irresistible door. It's a door that can't be closed now. So we'll see where it all goes.
The immediate response to this, and I know that last year we were talking about AI that were being implemented into the latest fighter jets as like a co-pilot, where you would have a human pilot who would be making the decisions, doing that kind of thing, and then the AI co-pilot would be analyzing all the radars and feeding information to the human. That still seems like what they're going to be doing, but this is again kind of an example of how far AI has come, which is obviously very far.
Very far, yes.
So, and really, ladies and gentlemen, in the past 10 years, we've gone like AI has defeated every chess pro, to AI has defeated every Go player, which they thought couldn't do, and now we have AI have defeated fighter jets. Probably about another 5 years before AI has defeated humanity. So there you go. We're going to work on it. We're going to work on it. So, with that being said, story number 1, story number 2. Oh, and by the way, Ralph, actually, just real quick before we do that, because I don't think this was included in your stories, and I wanted to do an aside from all of your stories.
Sure.
Because we covered this on the show, and this was like a week or two ago. Actually, I think it was like Monday. Ralph, do you recall the person in a jetpack that was flown around
Yes.
Los Angeles airport?
Again, I've heard the story, yes.
Again, we covered it on the show earlier this week, but I know that's not included in our list. And before I forget, I wanted your response to that, because we talk about jetpacks with you all the time. And, it's like one of those things that's like, hey, it's coming. It's here, and it's causing a nuisance.
Yeah, and I remember the story and so forth, and the pilots reporting it, several pilots and so forth. How did that end up? Did they find this person and arrest this person?
No,
I guess not.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, Chris said that they didn't, and if I recall, the police said we can't catch him. He has a jetpack, or something along this. Who knows what happened to him? But he got away with it.
Good for him. I'm very proud of him for getting away with that.
It's pretty wild.
And he
pretty
didn't get
crazy.
into a jet engine either. That's perfect. By the way, no problems.
It's Tony Stark-esque.
It really is, and Chris is taking the go jetpack guy go, but my response is obviously a flock of geese turned a pilot into a national hero. I can't imagine what a guy with a jetpack would turn that pilot into. And of course I'm talking about Sully.
Probably a psych patient.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
exactly.
That was definitely very sci-fi, very Tony Stark.
Yeah. So, and again, that was just a complete aside, because Ralph, I wanted you to comment on that. But story number 2, let's go ahead, get back on track.
You
story
got
number
it.
2.
And it reminds me too, as well, if you look at the clock, we never get through all my stories. Usually we don't. So that's okay, because you can come back to computeramerica.com, go and get the show notes, and you can consider it a bonus homework assignment, if you will, to go through the other stories, check out the links and so forth. So with that said, story number 2 comes from medicalexpress.com, a story by Kim Ward. Headline: Scientists grow the first functioning mini human heart model. Ooh, this is weird stuff. Okay, there's a video you can see and so forth. So Michigan State University researchers have created for the first time a miniature human heart model in the laboratory, complete with all primary heart cell types and functioning structure of chambers and vascular tissue. This is really out there stuff. According to researchers at the university's Institute for Quantitative Health, Science, and Engineering, these miniature hearts constitute incredibly powerful models to help study all kinds of cardiac disorders with a degree of precision unseen before. The miniature human hearts were created using a novel stem cell framework that mimics the embryonic and fetal development environments. Let that sink in for a second. That's so interesting. The team is excited about the wide range of applications for these miniature hearts. They will offer an unprecedented ability to study cardiovascular related diseases, from chemotherapy-induced cardiotoxicity to the effect of diabetes during pregnancy on the developing fetal heart. Wow. This is medical science way out there on the edge.
So, if I'm getting this right, and aside from collectors of the grotesque who could potentially have a little mini heart to collect in a jar on their shelf, I guess from a medical research point of view, Ralph, you can correct me, seems like they want to introduce these mini hearts that have never been from a person, in a person, whatever. They're completely grown in a lab, and they're able to induce cancer. They're able to induce, radiation, like with chemotherapy. Yes. And then they see the effects so they can study it without ever harming a person. That seems to be the improvement.
Well, yeah, and related to that, if you're an animal lover, which certainly my wife and I and many people are, it's nice to think that this kind of work can be done instead of our close kin in the form of monkeys and apes and primates and so forth. Instead of messing around with their bodies, we could do it in the lab by growing these kinds of organs. So that also is a kind of a neat benefit.
Monkeys and actually I think pigs are one of the closest when it comes to heart health. So
that's true.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, hopefully better treatment for heart disease and many things like that. Because your heart going, not one of the most fun things to get worked on. So
take it from me.
As Ralph would know. There you go. So, but hey, he is so full of love, and hey, he is here with us. So, with that being said, story number 3. Let's go ahead and get to
it. Here comes sci-fi again. New polymer coating could help brains merge with AI machines. Here's AI again, okay? This comes from thenextweb.com, a story by Thomas Macaulay, and you've got the link here and so forth. So here we go. A team of researchers at the University of Delaware have developed a new biosynthetic coating for microelectronic components that could help merge artificial intelligence electronics with the human brain. Okay, brain implanted microelectronics today include, because they do exist, devices to help with speech and vision impairments. The new biosynthetic coating is designed to overcome a fundamental challenge around connecting electronics to humans, and in this case, the human brain. So here's the problem. Traditional microelectronic materials such as gold, silicon, and steel cause scarring to tissue when implanted. The scarring disrupts the flow of electrical signals transmitted between implanted microelectronics and the brain. And this in turn puts a drain on the device's battery life as well. I didn't know this. This was a really interesting article, many counts. The solution: a new groundbreaking biosynthetic polymer coating allows implanted microelectronic components to connect to human tissue with dramatically reduced scarring. So the scarring doesn't go away, but it's dramatically reduced. And this helps to significantly increase the signal quality and the battery life of electronic components for the brain and or other body parts where microelectronics are implanted. So very interesting development, very, very encouraging, and also kind of spooky too.
I'm wondering how they do that.
Well, yeah, me too. I mean, dig into the article some more and so forth. I've kind of grabbed just the highlights, Carissa, but dig into it some more. You might find out a little bit about how they actually pull it off. But the idea, let's coat these electronic components with this polymer that dramatically reduces the scarring, gives you the benefit of greater connectivity and greater battery life is potentially profound.
Oh, so it's the item, the implant itself that's being coated. Then it's not like
that's correct.
Your brain that's getting the coat. Okay,
no.
I was thinking they would like pump it into your skull, and then it would just coat the outside of your brain.
No, it's just the component.
Like that.
It's the individual components,
Gotcha.
And again, to help thwart the scarring, which traditionally to date has been one of the impediments to making implanted microelectronics and for helping for vision or speech or other things of this nature. Boy, this is a good story. This one's really profound, I think.
And one of them was, let's see, I'm trying to see if it were in, I'm sorry, if it was in your notes, but I don't think it was. This is the kind of cool part because it actually has, many people benefit from this technology already. They're just thinking, hey, let's coat this different electronic material. So this quote here from the source that you got, Science Daily, which we have used a number of times. They do a lot of great stuff, but they're saying that, and this is the researcher from the University of Delaware, saying that we started looking at organic electronic materials, that conjugated polymers. This guy uses so many big words, and it's not his fault. We found, and here's the point, we found a chemically stable example that was sold commercially. So it's, this is not something in a lab. This is something that's already available to consumers as an anti-static coating for electronic displays, which is why if you touch your monitor, you don't get zapped every single time. It's that same technology. And they're saying after testing, the researchers found that the polymer had the properties necessary for interfacing hardware and human tissue. So they're simply taking a substance that is already widely used in the market today and just coating a different electronic in it.
Smart. Isn't that
super
great?
Super cool. And and again, kind of lends credit to that this is something that can actually help people. And this also reminds me of another story that happened since you were last on, Ralph. Speaking of human and gadget, kind of interfaces, I'm assuming that you heard a little bit about Neuralink by Elon Musk and his whole ilk. Did you see the announcement in the video that was shown with the pigs?
Yes, I did, and it's been when was that? Several weeks ago, right? I'm trying to remember when that was.
Early last month, or early.
Okay, I do recall.
Since you were last on, but it's been about a month. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and they're looking into all this kind of interesting stuff too. So
yeah,
the whole world of, again, all of us becoming cyborg or kind of synthesized human and machine, and the whole human machine thing melting away. And, where do we stop and where do we start? And, again, you can have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I would love to have some of my body parts replaced. Believe me, maybe, and my wife would say, go for his brain. Please.
Well, and the reason that I actually liked this article along with Neuralink's research is that they both come at it from a medical standpoint. It's not about this is going to be how you control your computer and you're going to be a better human for it. No, they're saying that we can help people with seizures, dementia, memory loss, all these kinds of things. And I think that's, technology, you often don't think that, cutting edge technology is going to help people with really, really age old problems. But who knows? Maybe in our lifetimes, we may see an actual technological cure for dementia. Yeah. And that would be really cool, really something.
Very cool stuff.
Absolutely. Story number 4, TechCrunch. What is this?
Yeah, well, here we go. Another AI reference story. Sometimes I think my appearances on your show and elsewhere should be called the Artificial Intelligence Report for the week or whatever.
There you go.
But here's the headline. Blind test shows artificial intelligence enhanced MRI scans are 4 times faster to do or produce than traditional MRIs, and they're just as good. This comes from TechCrunch, a story by Devin Culdaway. And this was interesting to me, too, another medical reference here. In a recent blind test comparison, a new artificial intelligence-based technique called FAST MRI is designed to accelerate magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI scans, has been shown to produce as good or better results than traditional MRIs. The new FAST MRI system halves or even quarters the time necessary to get a good scan without sacrificing quality. And folks, if you're trying to envision this, picture those tube things they put you in. You get on the tray and they ask you what kind of music do you want to listen to, and you got to lay perfectly still, and they put you into the tube, and you sit there with the doom, doom, doom. That's an MRI, okay?
Right.
If you're not familiar with what that is. So the FAST MRI project began in 2015 at the New York University School of Medicine, and 2 years ago became a team effort with Facebook's AI research team. So here's a reality check. The research comes with a small caveat. For example, to date, it has only been shown to work for knee MRIs, but the team plans to expand to other body targets, including even the brain down the road. But despite this limited application to date, the research marks an important step toward making this new AI-based MRI technology ready for use in the real world. Now, the bottom line, the new fast MRI AI enhanced technology could be a game changer when MRI results are needed as quickly as possible. For example, to rapidly diagnose an accident patient rushed to an ER, for example. So it's just the idea of really using AI to help dramatically reduce the time it takes to get a completely acceptable MRI scan.
It's one of those things, and I haven't talked about Craig Stroke on the show in a while, but when we took him to the emergency room and we went in there for brain scans, they did an MRI, and we had to wait 2-3 hours, and of course and a trained MRI technician had to come in kind of randomly, and it was just as quick as they possibly could, but even so, 2, 3, 4 hours went by, and in the case of something like a stroke, you're talking hours, critical, not days. So
well, and in this case, it could be a 30-minute process or 45 minutes.
That'd be super helpful. Helpful.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Yes.
And of course, here on the video portion, if you're looking in there, you can see the two images. Again, the one on the left is the traditional, and the one on the right, the AI accelerated, a quarter of the data. And for those of you out there just listening to the show, spoiler, they look just about the same. Like, to my untrained, to my untrained non-medical eyes, they look almost exactly the same.
If anything, the AI actually looks a little bit better.
I agree with you, Carissa. I was thinking the same thing. It looks a little clearer, and it appears if you look at that blotch down below where the intersection, that right there, it has more definition and detail. So and the story did say it as good, if not sometimes better than traditional MRI. How cool is that?
Yeah, you could definitely tell that this detail, this little smudge right here, is like almost not pronounced in the traditional MRI, and then in the Facebook one, it's much like that.
Pretty impressive.
I actually recall, and they said that this came from a 2015 New York University study, and they partnered with Facebook. I actually recall. I'm getting to the point where like these things happen, and then enough time goes by that we're seeing the benefits. But I actually remember the initial controversy where there were like 1 million patient records were shared with Facebook in their AI. And of course, you may remember this as well, Ralph, that the big controversy was like HIPAA law in particular. You're sharing 1 million patient records with Facebook, who is not a HIPAA compliant organization. And of course, these people had no choice. The hospital teamed up with Facebook to do this. The patients were not given any kind of notice. But even with all that controversy aside, and they obviously handled it in some means, we are now getting this technology, fast MRI, that hey, could actually have some real benefits. That, along with IBM, both of them are doing amazing work in the field. So there you go. Ralph, we've been talking AI. Let's talk about supercars. I think this is the next logical conclusion. And my God, there's something about car renders where it's like engineers don't like before you send a car off, and Ralph, you did a lot of work with AutoCAD. I know that you work with the construction and design team, but something about cars where it's like, the people who don't have to build them, the people that don't have to make them safe or anything like that, when it's just the artists put out the coolest pictures of cars. And this one, no exception, but go ahead.
This one is a hoot, right? This comes from Engadget.com, a story by Richard Lawler. Headline: Hyperion Motors hydrogen electric XP1 supercar is capable of 220 miles per hour and a 1,000-mile range. Holy smokers. And you're showing some of the great videos and all this good stuff. And this car is just the freakiest, coolest looking thing. If you're into sports cars, this is a blast. So first, a bit about Hyperion Motors. Hyperion Motors was founded nearly a decade ago by a team of PhDs exclusively focused on hydrogen-based power and delivery technology. And Hyperion has a track record of working with NASA to apply technologies developed for space travel to commercial applications. In other words, taking things developed for NASA and saying, how could this be applied for commercial purposes? Okay, that's the heritage of these PhDs. The news, though, is Hyperion Motors recently debuted the XP1 hydrogen electric supercar via a brief online video, which you're showing now. The vehicle has a titanium reinforced shell wrapped around a proton exchange membrane fuel cell power module. Say that 5 times real fast. Reminder, I know you folks know this, but for some in the audience, a little reminder here. A hydrogen fuel cell is a device that generates electrical power through a chemical reaction by converting hydrogen into electricity. And the exhaust from the tailpipe is, wait for it, harmless water. Gotta love that. Traditional hydrogen fuel cell power cars use a lithium-ion battery to store the electricity generated by the fuel cell. But Hyperion has developed a groundbreaking technology that uses the fuel cell itself to store energy, which is connected to electric motors that drive all 4 wheels. That's kind of neat. And then here's some factoids about performance. 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 2.2 seconds. Bang.
That's fast.
Yeah. A top speed of more than 220 miles per hour, as we mentioned earlier, and a promised range of 1,000 plus miles with hydrogen gas refueling that takes less than 5 minutes. Okay. Wow. And here's some more mind-blowing stuff about this car. And you see the picture of it. It's just so much fun to contemplate. So some innovative features include a 98-inch wraparound curved screen inside. My wife said, well, who would want that? I said, oh, I want it because you can. I mean, how cool is that? And this is really cool. And the air blades mounted on the side for aerodynamics also include solar panels that change position to track the sun. So smart mini solar power is embedded in the aerodynamics fins, as it were. I said, what? 300 units of a production version will be released starting in early 2022. No pricing disclosed at this time. I can't even begin to imagine what this thing's going to cost. But isn't that a fun set of cool technology? And not least of which, the automatically tracking solar panels on the aerodynamic fins.
Which also probably charge the battery in addition to the hydrogen.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a lot of electricity to drive that. What is it? 98-inch wraparound display.
Right. But the thing is like, what do you need that for if it's not like, auto drive like the Tesla is? What are you going to do with that massive screen if you still have to drive too,
I guess you could watch a movie or something. I don't know what.
I feel like if you're buying a car like this, you want to be in control. You want to drive, and auto driving is probably not something that's really
for 220 miles an hour. No.
Yeah, and that too. And I'm honestly wondering. I think this video is CGI. It's so hard to tell nowadays.
I'm sure it is.
I don't think this is the actual car, but this is renders and
it's got to be CGI, but it looks great.
Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it? Isn't it cool looking? I mean, I just
and
right out of Tron.
Yes, good one.
It really does. And Carissa, we just did a story the other day about a Nikola, which is a competitor to Tesla. They got a huge injection of cash from GM because they're going to be making electric pickup trucks as well, but they're actually doing hydrogen fuel cells as well. Like they're not doing Tesla's doing your traditional NiCad batteries, and Nikola is working on hydrogen fuel cell. It's exciting to see more and more people picking up on hydrogen fuel cell because, Ralph, like you said, the byproduct is water vapor. Yeah, it's
gotta love it.
It's really not that harmful, and of course, seeing the benefits of it. I mean, this just puts it over the top, though. Like, I've never seen a sports car that looks like this. I will say, though, to both of your points, that 98-inch display that they were talking about, I have seen that. I saw it out at CES this year. A number of the concept cars that they showed out at CES had that. Like, it's almost like the car of the future. Every surface is going to be a touchscreen to some extent. And even if it's something as simple as, like, let's say the passenger is sitting in front of the dashboard, they're going to be able to throw, let's say, a conversation or a video call onto the dashboard and move it anywhere they want, make it small, as large, whatever. Essentially, every touchable surface in a car, especially the dashboard, is going to be a display / touchable surface. So that's what they mean by that. And of course, Ralph, think about if you want the speedometer kind of bigger, you're able to move it over here, make it bigger. It's 2022 and 300 of them. I'm sure that we're going to get our hands on one. One of us will, probably.
Of course.
I'm betting about $6 million, if I had to guess.
I'm sure it'll be multi-million dollars. Yeah, I agree.
It's crazy. So there you go. And again, go check out the video. That thing is gorgeous. So story number 5. Man, we are like 40 minutes into it, 5 stories in. Good timing as always. Story number 6. And ethanol. Isn't it like corn? Isn't ethanol like
usually
corn?
It's corn-based. That's correct, yes.
Let's talk about this next story.
Okay, here we go. This comes from a really interesting website, cleantechnica.com. Story by Steve Hanley. Headline, Argonne National Lab breakthrough turns carbon dioxide into ethanol. Let that sink in. Okay, couldn't resist that headline. Researchers at the Argonne National Lab in Illinois, working with partners at Northern Illinois University, have discovered a new electrocatalyst that converts carbon dioxide and water into ethanol. So it's a combination of carbon dioxide and water together into ethanol. And as we all know, carbon dioxide is a heat-trapping greenhouse gas, so being able to capture it and turn it into ethanol is a big deal, potentially, needless to say. The new electrocatalyst itself is made up of atomically dispersed copper on a carbon powder support. So there's a lot of technical detail we don't have time to get into here on that. It breaks down carbon dioxide and water molecules and selectively reassembles them into ethanol using an external electrical field. And again, there's a lot of additional technology you could dive into on this. The new electrocatalyst process is very energy efficient and low cost. The bottom line, we all know this, ethanol is an ingredient in nearly all U.S. gasoline and is widely used within the chemical, pharmaceutical, and even the cosmetic industry. So having a low-cost alternative to labor-intensive plant, such as corn-based ethanol, is very attractive. And by the way, I did a little background research on, there's a lot of steps and a lot of labor and a lot of expense that goes into taking corn and turning it into ethanol. So this is another benefit, that this is a much more direct, much more simple process to take carbon dioxide and turn it into ethanol as opposed to a plant-based approach. So fun story. I thought this was really compelling.
Absolutely. And it's also a lot more renewable that way too, because then it's just, we make CO2 and then you just turn it into ethanol and you just keep that cycle going, and it just, I feel like it would make things a lot easier for
pretty cool
warming and stuff.
And in my short time working as a chemical engineer, I got to say that turning waste product into a usable product was like their number one thing, because anything that you throw out the door and you have to pay someone to haul away and dispose of, not only is that money lost, but that's also potentially kind of stuff that you can use. So turning waste into money is drives a lot of science. So there you go.
Yeah, it does. And I knew there was a reason I liked you, Ben, because my father was a chemical engineer. He was also a mechanical engineer, but he was a chemical engineer.
You have talked about your father working at, he worked at some big tech firm that you've mentioned on the show
actually,
before.
It's my grandfather.
Your grandfather, that was
a physicist. My grandfather was a physicist who worked at, a variety of things, not least of which Bell Labs.
Yeah,
and he worked with Brandine and crew on the transistor. So, yeah.
The basis of everything. There you go. So there you go. So let's go in and talk about story number 7. Sleeping microbes wake up after 100 million years. Okay. Happy birthday to sea microbes. Let's talk about this.
Oh yeah, this is another one of these kind of mind-melting almost sci-fi, but I think if you'll bear with me, you'll see where I think this is so profoundly potentially important for space exploration. You might go, what? But hang on, you'll see where I'm going. So this comes from livescience.com, another great website. Rafi Letzler is the author. Sleeping microbes wake up after 100 million years buried under the seafloor. What? 10 years ago, researchers from the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology were on a ship in an area of the South Pacific that's farthest from any continents and is regarded as the Earth's largest ocean desert. That's kind of a weird concept to think about. They collected sediment samples from 328 feet below the bottom of the ocean floor. And get this, the bottom of the ocean floor that they were drilling was 20,000 feet deep. Now, I don't know how they pulled this off. How do you get a drill down 20,000 feet and then go 328 feet deeper? That part I'm kind of go, what? But
the only thing I can imagine is that they had a little bit of a collaboration with anyone who drills for oil, because they could get that deep. But I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
I'm impressed. I'm blown away they get down 20,000 feet. Anyway, at that depth, there are very, very few nutrients and little oxygen available for any life to survive on. Gee, no surprise. The microbes they gathered in the sediment turned out to be dormant and dating back to 101.5 million years ago. What? So here's the big recent news. After all these years, the Japanese researchers recently conducted an experiment. They brought the single-celled dormant microbes back to life by exposing them to oxygen and nutrients. Prior to this experiment, no one knew that single-celled organisms could survive so long in a dormant state or be able to be revived, as it were. The cells responded quickly, by the way, and gobbled up nitrogen and carbon. And within 68 days, the total cell count had quadrupled from the original 6,986 microbes. Now, where's the space travel thing come in? We're going to Mars, people. And maybe, just maybe, in soil samples, if they're lucky, maybe they can find microbes, maybe, and if they would respond to nutrients and so forth. I mean, that kind of makes the presumption they would be like our Earth microbes, but nonetheless, that's why I thought this story was really interesting beyond just being a quirky, odd kind of thing.
Well, yeah, no, it again tries to answer that question of where do we come from, and the very existential question, and more it seems like microbes and life can exist in a lot of places, and it's not just oceans and wet and warm temperatures, but even in the near vacuum of space and super cold with lots of radiation and just very inhospitable. It continues to live. And I definitely like this one where, like you said, just a little bit of nutrients and oxygen, and next thing you know, hey, they're back at it.
Next thing you know, they take over the planet.
Yes, if I can quote a meme, it's that usual, put it back, 2020 is not the year we need this. It's bad enough already. Just put that back.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But yeah, so, and hey, who knows, maybe we will definitely find life on Mars, because it seems like if there was anything that could simulate conditions on Mars, almost no oxygen, no nutrients, and hey, you still found life that was able to kind of kick back up, which again also goes to show why we need to be so careful and sterilize NASA's equipment and rovers, is because anything that you send to Mars, it's gonna stay alive, and we could contaminate it. So there you go. Okay, Ralph, we're going to do story number 8, and then myself and Carissa, I think we're both going to pick one of the stories left over that we're gonna pick
your choice.
It, so but yeah, no, well, first we're gonna do story number 8, and then we'll jump around.
Sounds great. Okay, so hey, this has to do with Denver, and Carissa, I think I remember, isn't Colorado's unofficial state motto, if you don't like the weather, wait 30 minutes? I seem to remember that. Does that sound familiar?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, headline, Denver-based startup Boom, B-O-O-M, Boom is the name of the company, is ready to roll out its first carbon-neutral supersonic test jet. Came from CNET, story by Andy Altman. Really kind of cool. Now, if you remember the old Concorde years ago, the picture that they have of this plane looks like a dead ringer for the Concorde. So in a way, they're sort of picking up that heritage of design. But with that said, here's a story. On October the 7th, aircraft maker Boom plans to unveil a 1/3 scale proof of concept version of their future supersonic commercial passenger jet they've named Overture. Now, Boom hopes that Overture will be the first commercial supersonic jet since the legendary Concorde ended service in 2003.
Why did
Boom
it, by the way, just real quick?
Well,
Do you know
I think,
why it did?
I think it was the cost of the tickets, and there were fewer seats than a traditional plane and so forth. I believe I remember that was kind of the reason it lost traction. But otherwise,
high ticket price, and yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
So.
and limited seating. So the name of the game in the airline business is, jumbo jets, pack as many people as you can, and so forth and so on. So the Concorde just didn't kind of fly,
cool,
no pun intended.
Yeah.
It was all super cool. And by the way, there's that freaky sort of a quasi-high sci-fi show called Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime. And the Nazis, in that story premise, the Nazis win the war. They're flying Concorde like supersonic jet craft all over the place.
Really, I'm surprised they didn't go with the trope and just be like, oh, Nazis won, everyone gets Zeppelins. There's Zeppelins everywhere. But yeah.
Yeah.
They're jet Zeppelins, though.
I digress, however. So, okay, back to the story. Boom announced their goal is to have a 1/3 size test aircraft flying next year with a full-size Overture, which our show notes have a picture of, to go into service in 2030. So this isn't coming up real soon. This is a ways off. With a cruising speed of Mach 2.2, Overture will, for example, fly from San Francisco to Tokyo in 6 hours. Today, it takes about 10 to 11 hours to do that flight. In addition to becoming the fastest commercial jet ever built, the company claims Overture will operate 100% carbon neutral by ensuring Overture's engines can accommodate sustainable aviation biofuels. And I didn't really kind of know that there are biofuels that are sustainable, that are plant-based and so forth, ethanol related and so on and so forth in the aircraft industry. And their goal is to make sure this plane will use sustainable, renewable aviation biofuels. So kind of a fun story on multiple levels.
For sure. And hey, the technology was obviously there, but the maintenance and the cost and things like that, I mean, it's just a little bit ahead of its time. I mean, it's definitely going to come back. So Carissa, I believe she's looking for, let's see, yep, she picked actually a couple, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in front of her. Ralph, I really like the story about the globe, story number 10, just really jumped out at me. Because,
good choice.
Yeah, obviously, hopefully none of our listeners are still up in the air about plate tectonics. That's a thing. But to actually hear about its effects, because I think we've all seen the animation of Pangea turning into, the two continents and then, kind of turning all over. This makes it more personal. And I like this story, Ralph, because it's something that the people out there who are listening, they can go do and have fun with this themselves.
Yes. And a good reason, friends, if you don't already have one, to come out to computeramerica.com and get today's show notes, because we'll have the links for you. This is so much fun. Story from CNN, story by Elasar. I hope I'm saying that right. Headline: This online globe lets you see where your hometown was on the earth millions of years ago. It is so much fun to play with. So Ian Webster, a 30-year-old American paleontologist, has created an interactive online globe that allows people to see how far their hometowns, or frankly any location, have moved over 750 million years of continental drift. Holy smokes. It's so weird and so interesting. The first step when you get to the location, to the site, is to enter your location. So I put in, for example, Portland, Oregon. Next, you select the time period you want to see. You could say 150 million years ago, 200 million. What do you pick? I entered Portland and found that the oldest time period the online globe shows for our area here where I live is 240 million years ago. And at that time, Portland was on the coast, not inland. And there was a huge peninsula below Portland jutting out into the Pacific. So it's really weird to see. And you can be checking out where you live. It's so much fun. It's irresistible. The interactive globe also provides, along the way, fascinating information about life on Earth at the time period you select. And friends, if you've got kids at home are stuck because of coronavirus, they're having to do remote learning and all this good stuff, share this with their science teachers or try it out yourself with your kids. For me, being a weirdo geek, I thought it was absolutely a blast.
Yeah, and of course, and I just realized this. If you're watching the video portion, you can see it there. But they have jumped to the first insects, the first coral reefs, the first hominids, the first primates, and then of course you can go all the way back. And I picked one in particular, Alice Springs, Northern Territory, Australia, because if I recall correctly, some of the oldest rocks on Earth are ones that haven't gone through subduction and gone through the mantle again. Some of the oldest ones on Earth are actually from Australia, in the middle of Australia. So
and Ben, you can zoom in too. Roll your mouse. You can zoom in and get a little closer if you want. There you go.
No, Isn't that fun? Yeah, you get definitely right up in there. You can see all the territories and stuff like that. Super
freaky.
Cool. And man, it's like I said, I like this one because it's something that people can go out and try themselves. So give that a try.
Really clever stuff.
Carissa, I'll let you have the next story. Which one should we jump to?
All right, I'm going to say the next one, story 11, with the Toyota.
Yeah, hey, that's a good choice.
Maybe he wasn't in a jetpack. Maybe he was in a Toyota Camry. Not Camry. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of like a Camry, I guess. Anyway, so here's a story from Engadget.com from our eternally prolific guy, John Fingus. He's amazing. Headline, Toyota-backed all-electric flying car makes its first piloted test flight. You can see a picture of it here on the show notes and a video. This is kind of fun. A Toyota-backed outfit in Japan called SkyDrive recently conducted the first public test of its single-passenger, all-electric flying car after years of development. The vehicle is called SD-03, which looks like a giant drone, as you can see from the picture. It has a total of 8 rotors that help it fly safely, even if there's a motor failure. Currently, the SD-03 is the smallest manned electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle in the world. Now, the goal is to bring out a 2-seat version by 2023, and the idea is that it could be a flying taxi to help reduce ground traffic in high-density urban environments. And I will say this, that's a noble goal, but can you imagine a whole bunch of these flying guys in the air over a super busy thing like Tokyo? I mean, how do you control that? If you need AI or something to have automatic spacing and control, I guess. I don't know.
Ralph, didn't we do a story similar to this? But it was about Uber, who was offering Uber flights in New York from the tops of different business and office buildings for executives and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that story, but I can't remember if we did that together or not.
I might have did it by myself. This was like months ago, but and something like this, it wouldn't be so much for like just everyday. It's like, hey, I need to go to McDonald's. Drop me off at McDonald's. It'd be more like a businessman is needed, from one building to the next, and you go from rooftop to rooftop, and it cuts down congestion like that.
I think you're right there. I have trouble imagining being like a fleet of taxis constantly over the, I think there'd be just too much.
Or doctors or surgeons or, other people. Yeah.
Emergency response people. I love that. That's smart. There you go.
It's certainly something. So, wow, these stories actually flew on by, no pun intended. So there you go. And Chrissy, we're also looking at story number 13, 14 as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at story number 13. And hey, it's actually a use for Spot. It's pretty interesting because Spot, the dog from Boston Dynamics, they just went on sale a number of weeks ago, and I think the final tally was, Ralph, if I recall, 30 or 40,000 or 80.
Something. More like 70 to 80, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. But so they were finally on sale, but now we're actually getting to people using them in the wild, and this seems like one of them.
Yeah, and this might be our last story looking at the clock, but here we go. Story was picked up in multiple outlets, but I used the story in the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom, their newspaper. Headline, Robot Dog Can Spot COVID-19 Symptoms 6 feet away. And if you're not familiar with the Boston Dynamics Robot Dog, run, don't walk to check it out. And if you're of course watching the show notes here, you can see the video. So earlier this year, we talked about the Harvard Medical School's Brigham and Women's Hospital using an iPad mounted on the face of a Boston Dynamics 4-legged Spot robot dog to safely engage and interview incoming suspected COVID-19 patients. But here's the deal. Now, researchers at MIT have announced the development of a Spot robot dog-based mobile system that goes beyond two-way communicating to add capturing a patient's vital signs. Okay. The new system is called Vitalcam and includes cameras and sensing technology that allow Spot to capture a person's vital signs from more than 6.5 feet away. In fact, the MIT researchers say they've proven that Vitalcam system can quickly measure pulse rate, temperature, and other diagnostics. And here's the fun part. The Vitalcam system works by using 4 different cameras mounted on Spot. First, an infrared camera that measures temperature and breathing rate. Then 3 other cameras filter different wavelengths of light to gauge pulse and blood oxygen saturation. Ooh, that's cool. So far, Spot has only been tested on healthy patients. The next step would be to try it out in an emergency room setting. Now, if it meets FDA approval, the Vitalcam could save time, resources, and possibly even lives. So technology helping with COVID in so many ways and so many fronts.
So you're saying that Spot just wants your blood is what you're saying. They want to be able to test your blood. Gauge your blood. I got you. And you said that in traditional Transylvanian speech. So there you go. And hey, like I said, we've seen them available to the public, and now we're going to start seeing some of the use cases, and that's exciting. And hey, I guess getting some duct tape and just strapping an iPad onto its head. Okay, good use for it. So Ralph,
if it works, it works.
Yeah, definitely. So Ralph, we're just flat out of time. We have like a minute left. Let's just talk about real quick. If people go over to your website, what can they find when they go there?
Sure. Just point your browser or Google my name, Ralph Bond, and then you'll see a pull-up reference, and it talks about being with this show and with KEX Radio. Click on that link, and then in my website, I have all my radio activities, Computer America, plus my KEX Portland, Oregon radio work as well.
Absolutely. You can see that there. And with that being said, Ralph, any plans this weekend?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, we're going to try to go to Sun River, Oregon, which is in South Central Oregon. But, oh, my goodness, we had vacation plans, and now it might be all smoked in. Not burning, but inundated with terrible smoke pollution. So we'll see.
Hey, we'll be thinking of you. And, of course, everyone else out there. Again, hey, hope everyone has a great weekend. You have fun. Carissa, you have fun too. We'll be back bright and early Monday at 4 p.m. More computer and technology news and more Computer America right after that. So everyone, have a good one. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
See you then.